We'll come to all that in a moment, but first to the political developments that unfolded in Abia State earlier this evening, where Alex Otti, the candidate of the Labour Party, has been declared the winner of the governorship election there. Mr. Otti was declared the winner by the Electoral Commission INEC after the resumption of the delayed collation of results. He polled 175,467 to defeat Oke Ahiwe, his closest rival and candidate of the People's Democratic Party, who scored 88,529. The announcement of his victory has sparked celebration across the state. INEC on Monday suspended the collation of the results in Abia after thugs invaded its office in Obingwa local government. The victory is the first for the Labour Party in the governorship election that took place across Nigeria on March the 18th.
There is no doubt that given the deplorable state of our infrastructure, roads, schools, and health systems, Abians are deservedly impatient to have these issues addressed as quickly as possible. I assure you that these areas will receive the priority attention of our government. Nevertheless, I caution that we need to put in our best and row together in one direction. There is no magic wand that can fix all the rot and decay noticed in virtually every segment of the system since the past several years. For us to have sustainable development, it will require very painstaking and elaborate layout of master plans to enable us to tackle the menace of flooding and re-engineer our cities, especially Abia, Umuahia, and other cities that will be developed in order to support our urban renewal projects. We therefore plead for patience and understanding as we first tackle the immediate challenges and work on other major ones. The approach of our government will revolve around crafting policies that will enable our government to tap the creative energies of every Abian. We remain resolute in our drive to eliminate poverty and create sustainable wealth for our people. Once again, thank you for electing me and my deputy to serve you for the next 4 years and possibly 8.
And that's Alex Otti there delivering his victory speech, having emerged as the governor-elect in Abia State. I'm sure there'll be more of that on Arise News through the evening. Now let's move on, because 4 opposition parties have now filed legal challenges against Bola Tinubu's victory in Nigeria's contentious presidential election. The PDP's Atiku Abubakar, the Labour Party's Peter Obi, Solomon Okambuan of Action Alliance, and Chichi Ojei of the Allied People's Movement. The 2 main opposition leaders, Atiku Abubakar and Peter Obi, have asked the election tribunal to, among other things, declare that Mr. Tinubu was not duly elected by a majority of lawful votes cast at the time of the election. They also allege that Mr. Tinubu and his Vice President-elect, Kashim Shettima, were not qualified to run, that there were corrupt practices, and that the tribunal should withdraw Mr. Tinubu's election victory certificate. So clearly, Nigeria yet to emerge from the corrosive flames of its election season. But while a very aggrieved opposition heads to the courts, Mr. Tinubu, still of course basking in his victory, has called for Nigerians to come together and attempt to heal. Well, to shed more light on this, I'm joined now in the studio by a member of the APC's Presidential Campaign Council Public Affairs Unit, Bola Bakare. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
I'm glad to be here, my brother.
And thank you for your patience, because I mean, we've had to kind of keep you here for a little bit. So thank you.
It's good to go. Thank you too.
Well, what's your reaction to the fact that both the PDP and Labour have now filed their legal challenges in court? And what is your reaction to the grounds on which they filed their challenge?
Thank you, Charles. We're talking about democracy here. And democracy is a dynamic phenomenon, highly dynamic. If they hadn't filed their litigations in court, I would have said we don't have a good opposition or politicians are not doing the right thing. Because what we believe is whatever happens, the essence of the law courts is for aggrieved parties to go there and seek redress. And that is what they've done. I am all for it. The President-elect Asiwaju Bola Tinubu is all for it. And all Nigerians will have to do is just to sit back and let the law courts take its due course. That's more like it.
In a sense, he needs that to legitimize his presidency.
Of course, yes. Of course, absolutely, yes. Absolutely.
And in terms of the grounds, I mean, the PDP are challenging the qualification of Mr. Tinubu. They're talking about his certificates. They're saying he refused to submit his primary and secondary school certificates, and also the University of Chicago certificate he tendered. They say there are conflicts around that as well. Labour are talking about the case he faced in America that led to his allegedly paying a $400,000 fine, and they're both talking about corrupt practices during the election. In effect, they say your candidate was not qualified to run at the time of the election.
We're going back to situations and banters. I call them banters that have been properly taken care of months back, prior to the elections. And what I'm saying here to you, live and direct, is let the law courts take its due course. Another thing I can say to you here is the PDP, the Labour Party, etc., they are not INEC. They do not determine what INEC is going to do. They do not determine who is qualified or who is not qualified. So whatever allegations you are throwing out there, it is not in your position to talk about them. Why don't you ask INEC? Why? And INEC is satisfied with all the bits, the parameters you've laid across. INEC is satisfied as is. I am repeating myself here. Weeks back, months back, prior to the elections, all these things have been tabled. Our PCC, Presidential Campaign Council, vis-a-vis the Public Affairs Department, we've been here. A son in the person of Festus Keyamo has been here to debunk all these things you were saying. And then I believe coming down to sit down and then saying, oh, well, let's go back into that. We're wasting our viewers' time. We're not trying to educate them enough about ways of moving forward, not backwards.
Well, obviously, we have to examine the grounds on which they are putting forward their legal challenge. We're not trying to get you to delve into the merits of the case, because it is obviously...
That is not my purview.
It is obviously in court. We just wanted your reaction to some of those points. And clearly, I mean, if you look at the legal history in Nigeria and with elections and so on, many things that INEC has agreed to and allowed to go through have been overturned by the courts. So
let's wait for
the fact that INEC agreed to it or sanctioned it doesn't mean that it's going to pass the muster when it comes to the courts. And there's one other issue I would like, if possible, that you could react to, because they're also aiming to establish that the Constitution says you must win 25% in the FCT. These are all contained in their legal challenge. Because Mr. Tinubu didn't win the FCT, they're saying that on that basis he should not be declared the winner.
I will make it short and direct to you. Don't let us preempt the courts. Let the courts do its work, and then we all wait for the results. You're trying to say you want to hear my own reactions. Most of all this, I'm repeating myself like a bad tape. Most of all these parameters have been tidied up before. These issues have been raised before. All the parties concerned vis-a-vis their public affairs department, their media and publicity departments. They've been able to come up with this. There has been banters here and there, A against B, B against C. All this have been put on the table. The average Nigerian, our viewers back at home, they've been able to listen to this and they've been able to form their own personal opinions. Now the time is right for the courts to decide on that. You were telling me earlier that in most cases, it's not everything that goes to the court that plays along the lines of, like you were saying, maybe the president-elect. Let's wait for that. Don't let us jump the gun yet. We are not judges. We are not the sons. We are not the prosecutor or the defendants here.
Well,
so
obviously, that's why we said we're not looking at the merits of the case.
That's right.
But would the APC, your candidate, the president-elect Bola Tinubu, be prepared to live with the agony of defeat if the courts find against his victory?
He is a man that then says, that responds to his word. He said it earlier, loud and clear, that whatever comes out of the courts, it's going to be okay by him. And that is what I want the average Nigerian, the viewers out there, that is what I want you to believe.
Right.
Let us wait on the courts. Whatever the courts are coming out with is going to be okay by him. Little wonder, he was saying one thing that you said earlier in your speech, that he is saying, let all parties concerned come together and let's have a kind of a government of national unity. Let's bury the hatchet. The element of saber rattling, we are going to court. You have the right to that.
Just quickly,
Go
sorry
ahead.
to interrupt you. He didn't say government of national unity.
Okay.
Right.
A government that is all encompassing. Let us all come together in the name of Nigeria, because he is not Nigeria alone. We are all in it together. Just you, Charles, and Bola, we are Nigerians. We are interested in what is happening in Nigeria.
Absolutely.
So we must be part of it. They are part of it too. Let me run you an analogy that one of my kids used to say when we were young, when he was younger.
Sure.
He said, like when if Nigeria were playing a football match, and he says, Dad, let's pray. I said, pray for what? So that Nigeria will win. And I keep telling him, you relax. You know one thing about God? God is busy enjoying the football match because both of his kids are playing. And what God says in his mind is, may the better team of my kids win.
Absolutely.
I am calling this, what we have on ground now is politics, and politics is bound to be dynamic. The dynamism in politics is what we are seeing. The courts in this wise are going to put in, maybe add butter to the bread and say, okay, this is our final take. And until that happens, let us wait for the final take. Because Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, honestly, is ready to take Nigeria to greater heights. And that is what I want you, our viewers back at home, to believe loud and clear.
Okay, well, let's turn to what you mentioned briefly earlier, which is Mr. Tinubu's statement condemning physical and verbal assaults during the governorship election and calling for unity and for the process of healing to begin. On the face of it, sounding very presidential. I'm wondering,
that's what it is.
I'm wondering what the political calculations are and the political context behind the statement and what the sentiments are that are riding on it, because he only expressed concern about the governorship and state assembly elections, not the presidential election. If you look at the statement, it's quite clear.
For all he cares, what we're talking about now is what is current. He's talking about a current topical issue.
Well, obviously the presidential election is current and topical.
Current and topical.
We're emerging from election season.
As far as we're concerned, barring the fact that court cases are on ground as we speak, he's looking at it that Nigeria, he is the president-elect, he has a job on hand. He has a job to do. And then the second round of elections, which is Guba and the states, houses of assembly, is the next thing on hand. And that statement he made applies to all the elections on ground, that it's high time we come together. It is high time we come together because we're all in this together. Somebody has to win. The case we have on hand now is not a case of victor or vanquished. It's a case of we are all in it together. We need to come together. We need to talk together and make things work. You know what I tell people around town is, when it comes to politics, you might be Charles, I am Bola, but the funny thing is we're both Nigerians. You might be party A, party B, party C, but they're all politicians. All they wish is for Nigeria to move on to greater heights. Whoever is going to do that, depends on the electorate. The electorate, they've done their own bit. The parties concerned are now saying, oh, we are not okay with that. And there is a sure avenue for you, which is the law courts. Go to the law courts and seek redress. And until then, I will advise the average Nigerian out there, let us just sit back a little bit. Exercise some patience. This time around, there's a time frame to it. It's not a case of those days when we have 2-3 years of litigations and then it becomes off-season. This time is a short period. The tribunal is going to sit, and then we are going to have the appropriate result.
I think you've made some very good points there. And I think a very important point that you mentioned was the fact that this country belongs to all Nigerians,
of course,
irrespective
absolutely.
of where the Nigerian comes from
right.
or where they live.
That's right.
Because it is people are blaming your party and the supporters of Bola Tinubu for a lot of the ethnic strife that has evolved out of this, and all the allegations and the calls for people to move away from a particular area unless they vote in a particular way, and that they're going to be prevented. That's why a lot of people think that the statement that Mr. Tinubu made doesn't go far enough. They wanted to see him take more action in reining in the people that they consider to be renegades in his own team, who were seen to be publicly engaged in rabble-rousing that could have politically or potentially helped fuel some of the same assaults that he was condemning.
I would like to use one word for all you've said in the past 1 minute: allegedly. Let me tell you this for free, my brother. You've been around for a while.
Well, it's not an allegation. I mean,
no, you've been around for a while.
Verifiable handles on
I said
Twitter handles.
You've been around for a while. You see, this election has been, to me, has been very, very dynamic. But there is one aspect to these elections which I guess we'll be able to surmount, and then next elections, subsequent elections, we'll be able to do without them. And that is the element of ethno-religious politicking, which is just encapsulating what you just said, ethno-religious politicking. I'll say this to you. Let me mention his name. Atiku Abubakar was out there of the PDP saying, look here, forget the aspect of the unwritten law that says power shifts to the south. I am your person. Vote for me. That is ethnicity in itself. Though it is allowed in politics, because most things are allowed in politics. When it comes to the religious aspect of it, another party used the element of the Muslim ticket of the APC to go to town to the Christians that you are going to be shortchanged. I will tell you one thing. I had a discuss with somebody who is a professor. I'll mention his name. Professor Adeni. We talked about this prior to elections. And then we were talking in terms of this Muslim ticket and the rest of it. He said it plays little or no factor in what makes a country. He now said one thing. Is the person of Oshibajo a Christian vice president? Did that allow him to Christianize Nigeria? The answer is no.
No, I'm not sure I understand the point you're making. I mean, they were very clear.
I'm talking in terms of ethno-religious politicking
yeah, but you're
in
talking
Nigeria.
Broadly. I'm talking about specific instances
That's right.
that took place
That's right.
during the presidential elections
That's
and
right.
subsequently during the governorship elections in places like
this
Lagos.
This factor
with
of ethno-religious politicking.
People in your team making verifiable statements on their Twitter handles, public statements that can be traced to them, that many people saw as inciting ethnic strife. That's the point I'm making.
The point you're making is
generally.
The point I'm making is make your own statement general too. Because if you say APC, members of APC were saying, oh, you can't vote here because this is Yoruba land, in quote. It happened in the East too. If you want materials to show for that, I can send them to you.
I don't understand what you mean.
The element of
East.
if you are in the Southeast, the idea is this is our domain. You have to vote for Labour Party. It transpires everywhere. If you go to some places in the north, it transpired there too. But what I am saying to you, what I enjoyed the most...
I don't think anybody in the east, I don't see any evidence of anybody saying that if you're not Igbo,
Labour Party,
you
I
can't
said,
vote
Labour Party,
here.
Labour Party,
I don't see any evidence of that.
I have a video
Yeah.
of a polling unit that was in a school where the people there will come and give you a close marking enough to look at where you thumb printed. A man thumb printed APC and his butt was kicked out of the school because they were using a school. I have the video. I can send it to you later. So these are things that happens here and there. These are things that brings on that element of ethnic, religious, politicking, which I am praying to Nigerians that it's high time we do away with it. Because without it, we won't be able to have that straight-jacketed, straight-laced politicking that will give us the right person. But I can say one thing. Our president-elect is going to do a fantastic job of moving Nigeria forward. The element of ethno-religious politicking, we are going to play it down. We are surely going to play it down because it is necessary. You cannot do without it because electioneering is sentimental.
Yeah, but again,
when it comes to voting, you vote emotionally.
But again,
so you vote along those two lines.
You're speaking on his behalf. I mean, he just issued a statement
that says,
and people have said that this was an opportunity for him to call in the people from his own team. I mean, charity has to begin at home. You can't be talking about other places when there are people within your own team. And the difference is that you are now the president-elect. So a way of showing Nigerians that this is the path you wish to toe, that would have been a place to start, to say, hey, there are people on my team who did this, and I condemn it absolutely, and we're going to investigate, and if we find that any of them violated any rules or the law or incited hatred or anything like that, they will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. That would have given
what you're saying
the rest of
what you're saying in
Nigerians
essence is you're telling him to indict himself on situations of what you're saying because you found them on the social media, and then the people that own the handles where people you said it can be traced to them. I just made you a statement right now that when it comes to politicking, it has to do with the person. It has to do with your personal opinion. It has to do with sentiments. It has to do with your psychological makeup. Your thought pattern. Your religious thinking has a lot to do with it, irrespective of who you're thinking about.
I don't understand what you're talking about.
The thing is, people, the electorate, that element of saying one man, one vote does not deplete my personal opinion. If I don't like you, I can tell you to your face, I'm going to whip you. But that does not mean everybody in my party is going to whip you. I'm making a personal statement from me to you.
Yeah, but you're asking people to vote for you on the basis that you are a credible candidate.
Of course, yes.
Who recognizes the
Absolutely.
fact that this is a multi-ethnic society in which people must live together.
Absolutely.
When members of your team start being divisive in that same circumstance, it undermines what you're saying to the people.
It does not. Take it in this context. Take it in this context. The context is there are people out there with personal opinions that have a right. There is a right to speech. You can say anything you want. More so these days that we have what we call social media and this new media where people can just pick up your phone and write anything that you want.
Right.
And it goes
basically
viral.
You support what those people said and the fact that and you think your candidate that the president-elect should not condemn people like that.
The essence of the statement is this. When people make personal opinions that are not good for the development of Nigeria, every right-thinking Nigeria should condemn it. Every right-thinking Nigeria to condemn it. And that is why my principle is saying one thing. This element of ethno-religious politicking in Nigeria, it's high time we play it down. It's high time we all come together, be on the same page so that Nigeria can move forward. Our difference in names, our difference in political parties, our difference in thinking and in opinions, let us bury the hatchet. And then let us think in terms of Nigeria first and foremost before we start thinking in terms of self, political parties, and then my ethnic inclination.
Okay, Bola, I want to thank you very much indeed. It's been a very feisty discussion, but you're a very articulate person.
Thank you, my brother. You're
hearing
too.
from you. Bola Bakare is a member of the APC's Presidential Campaign Council Public Affairs Unit. Thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome for always.